Congressman Forbes graduated from high school, Great Bridge High School in Chesterfield, and went on to Randolph-Macon College and number one in his class there. Went to the University of Virginia and became a lawyer after that. Went to law school at the University of Virginia. But it's when you look at his biography, you can see someone who's been dedicated to public service for a very long time. First in the Virginia General Assembly, and since 2001 representing Virginia in Congress. His district has changed over. It now includes a much larger portion of Chesterfield County, and we're thankful for that. Because I personally think Congressman Forbes is very good about seeking out solutions within his district. And I'll give one example. And this is a collaborative effort where a lot of stakeholders were involved. The county and the business community came together to set aside money from the vehicle tax to help fund the interchange at Mediville Technology Park. But that couldn't do it alone. Congressman Forbes helped with federal money to get that project done. And in the past year alone, we've had $200 million worth of investment, private investment. 1,000 jobs with Amazon, with the Capital One data center. That's real impact, folks. And we have Congressman Forbes was a key part of helping make that happen. And with that, I'd ask Congressman Forbes to come forward and give some remarks.
But I want to tell you, as Brendan said, Brendan, thank you for the introduction. One of the things that we spend a lot of time doing is listening to people. Not just here. We travel around the country and we sit and listen because we find if you can really listen to people, you can find ways that we can create solutions that move the country forward. And if you travel around America today and you listen to people and you just kind of get through all the noise, there are really 4 words that kind of describe their feelings. And they've evolved over the last year or so. The first one is frustration. There are a lot of people who are extremely frustrated. And one of the reasons they're frustrated is because they don't feel they can get the truth anymore. They feel like everything they see is just spin. Whether it comes from the government, whether it comes from the media, wherever it is, they're scratching their heads and saying, just somebody give us some facts, that we can look at. We're pretty smart people. We can make our own decisions, but they're frustrated they don't get those facts. The second word that I've watched kind of evolve is anger, because they get angry in the fact that as they look around, they are seeing the fact that the people who they believe have the truth, who have the facts, are not making the right decisions, that they're so polarized, they're so separated that they can't make decisions to move the country forward. And then the third one that I think is important to them is one that I have not seen in a long time in this country, but I'll tell you, I've seen it the last several months, is fear. They actually are afraid, and they will tell me that. Now, this is generals, admirals, this is CEOs of big companies, because they pick up, or they turn their TV on and they see our embassies being attacked, they see things happening around the world, and they say, what in the world is happening to our country? It's kind of like it's slipping through our fingers. And then the fourth thing is, I think I see them energized right now, because they're all saying, hey, I can't rely on that pronoun they anymore. I have to say, what can I do to help my country? And if you step back a little bit, I would suggest there's 2 things that we need to be focusing on and trying to do among all of us specifically. The first one is we've got to find a way to find common ground with one another. Now, that's a big difference than compromising your principles. I'm one of those people who don't believe you should compromise your principles. I'll help people all the time say, should we have more compromise? I'll say, no. I don't believe, I've never asked a friend of mine to compromise his principles, because if he'll compromise his principles in one area, he'll compromise them in another area. But what we need to focus on is how we can find common ground to find the solutions we need to move the country forward. And then the second thing is we have to have some analysis, some of those facts that we bring on the table and say, forget all the spin. What's the true analysis that drives us forward? I want to start with the common ground, and I want to start with what Brendan said. I don't think we're going to see this magically happening in Washington tomorrow. Everybody will say, how come we can't, Washington's so polarized? Well, the reason Washington's so polarized is because the country is so polarized. I mean, just look at the last cycle that we've had in the election. We have probably, if you add up all the campaign dollars, if you add up all the media dollars that you have had spent in the last year or so, we are probably approaching $2.5 to $3 billion that's been spent not bringing people together, but separating people and dividing people. We look at the things that used to unite us, and we don't see them anymore. Something as simple as teaching history. Look at the curriculums in most of our higher education, most of our colleges and universities, and we don't even teach a history that unites us and pulls us together. And we see group after group from other parts of the world that love to see the United States divided. Now we can sit here and wring our hands and say, oh my gosh, I wish that wasn't the case. Or we can say, how can we push through that and find the common areas that we can agree on and move the nation forward? And we can do it. We can do it. We've done it here in Chesterfield County. Whether you're talking about creating an industrial capacity, whether you're talking about medical exchange, whether you're looking at Fort Lee. I mean, remember just a decade ago, Fort Lee was on the chopping block getting ready to go, and this community and all the surrounding communities, we all came together. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent. One of the things we don't want to do is lose Fort Lee. Today, Fort Lee is about 1/7 of the economy of this whole area here, and it's probably the most forward-looking facility in the United States military today. The Defense Supply Center, remember that was on the chopping block. It's actually had growth of about 20% over the last several years after Iraq. Look at General Dynamics. They want to cut those jobs out because they didn't want to have open bidding anymore. They wanted to have sole source bidding so that they could put the jobs anywhere they want. Everybody came together and said, how do we focus and how do we change that? And it can happen in Washington too. One of my best friends in Washington is a guy by the name of Mike McIntyre. I happen to be a Republican from Virginia. Mike is a Democrat from North Carolina. We work together on religious freedom, religious liberty issues. In the last campaign cycle, the only situation in the United States of a Democrat inviting a Republican to his district or a Republican inviting a Democrat during campaign time was Mike McIntyre asked me to come to his district to speak about those issues because he told everybody in the audience, he said, these aren't Republican, these aren't Democratic issues. This guy I love, he loves me, we go to the floor, nobody's going to find us attacking each other because we're looking for common ground to defend and protect religious liberty, religious freedom. But it wasn't just religious freedom and religious liberty. Congressman Lipinski, another Democrat, came together and we looked at what we're doing with all this argument about health care, but we're not moving the curve. Suppose we did this. Suppose in doing all the bailouts that we did. Suppose instead of doing that, we took just $25 billion. We sent it to the National Institute of Health and we said, don't politicize the research that you do. For one time, put a chair in the middle of the room and say, we want the research to go where it's going to have the most near-term clinical benefit for a patient. And then we said this, we want you to focus on 3 illnesses, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and diabetes. All the researchers told us, if we had been successful, we wouldn't have cured those illnesses, but we would have bumped the symptoms out 2 years. If you just delay the symptoms on one of those illnesses 2 years, we would have changed the cost curve for health care in this country like nothing we've seen in decades. And then on defense cuts that we've got, I traveled to Illinois. They asked me to come and speak at one of the armories there on defense cuts. I'm in the room. I look up, and here comes a guy named Dave Loebsack. Dave's a Democrat from Iowa, very liberal Democrat. He walks in. I had no idea what he was going to say. I'm sitting, pretty much like I'm doing right now. Dave, I'm sitting by the table. When I sit down, he got up and he said this. He said, I drove from Iowa today because I heard he was going to be here speaking. He is one of the most bipartisan chairmen in the United States Congress, and everything he's saying about defense cuts is right. It doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican. I drove here tonight to tell you we better change these things and turn around. So it can happen if we get through all the hype and all the spin and say, not compromising our principles, but how do we work to find common ground to move the nation forward? And then the other thing that's important for us to do is just put some facts on the table, do some analysis, instead of just saying, this is what I think. At some point in time, we just need to say, what does the analysis show us? And if you look at the analysis right now, let me tell you why people are so afraid. The analysis would show you, and if you look at history, there have been 4 great pillars that have always kept America strong. They have kept us strong when we were in tough times. They've kept us strong when we were in prosperous times. But today, those 4 pillars are shaken. And one of those pillars you all know because you're a part of it, and that is the economy. And when you look at the economy, no matter what you see, it doesn't matter whose fault it was, doesn't matter what policies got us here, you can argue those, have a great debate about that, do all those things, another time, another place. What we need to do is put the analysis on the table, though, and say, where are we? And the reality is, regardless of whose fault it is, regardless of what the policies are, we have been having net losses of jobs, net increases of jobs. But here's what frightens me. When I walk out that door today, there are 3 enormous job killers. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care whether, whatever hype you see on TV. There are 3 great job killers that are sitting out there getting ready to hit this economy. One of them are going to be these tax cuts. When these tax cuts run out, those tax breaks hit them. This is not me, this is not spin. This is analysis by Ernst & Young, and you can put any other analysis up, it's just I haven't seen enough. Put Ernst & Young's analysis up and they say if these cuts go up, if these tax rates go up, that we're going to lose 700,000 jobs. I had an African-American minister, as a supporter of mine, huge church. He walked into a meeting I had, he said, let me tell you something. I see all the spin on these tax cuts. But what people don't understand, I got the largest church in my city. We have a lower socioeconomic group in there. Not many of those people make more than $200,000. Because let me tell you something. The drivers of my church, the ones who fund it, do make $200,000 or $250,000. And he said, if they go away, I'm not worried about my salary. He said, but all of a sudden my ministry to women goes away. Single mothers. My ministry to acts go away. And he started listing all the ministries. And he said, if those ministries go away, who's going to pick it up? The government? They can't do it as effectively as I can. So we're looking at 700,000 jobs that could go away. This is on the books that's going to hit us in January. We can't change it. The second big thing, healthcare law. And look, whether you like it or not, it's okay. It's just the Congressional Budget Office, which is not Democrat, not Republican, says very clearly, if that law phases in 2013 and 2014, we will lose 800,000 jobs. Ron and I were just with some franchise owners last night who told me they're cutting jobs. I don't think we've talked to an employer around the country that's not telling me if this thing phases in, we're going to cut jobs out and we're going to lose those jobs because we can't afford capital. And then the third thing are these defense cuts that are arbitrary. We've already taken $800 billion out of defense. We're getting ready to take $500 billion out in January. And according to the Secretary of Defense, it's going to cost 1.5 million jobs. According to the aerospace industry, 2.1 million. Anywhere you look at that, we need to come together and find common ground and say, wait a minute, whatever our political leanings are, we can't afford to have almost 3 million jobs lost in this economy. He said he was so concerned by what he read. He went to the library because none of the kids his age could believe that there could be a nation that was really a nation of laws that applied to everybody. The responsibility of those laws, but the benefits of those laws. And he said all of a sudden he got the Federalist Papers. He said, I didn't understand 10% of what was in it. But the 10% that I understood gave me a passion to want to come to this country. He came with $8 a day to buy a year. Because he said, those laws apply to me. Got a friend of mine I had lunch with about 3 months ago. He told me this. He said, I had a friend that came to me, wanted me to invest in his business. I told him I didn't think so. I didn't think it was going to do very well. He came back to me and said, I think business is going to do okay. You want to invest in it? He said, nope, not going to invest in it. He said, all of a sudden I looked, this friend of mine was getting his secretaries to invest in it, getting the truck drivers to invest in it. And I thought, oh, man, they are making such stupid business decisions. Well, his friend was Sam Walton, and if you drive through Bentonville today, those secretaries have mansions up there, multimillionaires, the truck drivers have mansions, because they made stupid decisions that just happened to turn out because under the rule of law, they got the benefit of those decisions. But if they had failed, we shouldn't be there to bail them out. That was their decision to do. That rule of law is shaken. Third thing that I think is a great pillar that's sustained is religious freedom and religious liberty. And I won't spend a lot of time here because I spend a lot of time around the country. It's not whether you force someone to believe. It's if you study our history, for centuries, the government would step in when somebody's religious freedoms and liberties were being attacked and defended. In the last years, we've had that flip around, where the government's now coming in to stop it. When you get the Navy issuing an order that a pastor can't bring a Bible in a naval hospital to read to a patient, even if the patient asks him, that's too far. When you get a bank in Oklahoma that's being shut down by the Federal Reserve because it has a table that says Merry Christmas on it, that's too far. When the United States Air Force says to its commanders, you can't tell one of the people under your command about a valid, approved program that could help them with suicide concerns or with marital concerns because you can't do it, only the chaplain can do it. That's too far. And then we have to fight that and once again reestablish that code. And the fourth, final thing is our defense. And I'll just tell you this, Chairman of the Readiness Subcommittee, we are getting ready to dismantle the greatest military the world has ever known. When you talk about these cuts, I know dollars go over all our heads. Let me tell you the results of it. I told you the economic results, but the strategic results of these. We pulled out our missile defense systems out of Europe, and we put them on the backs of the Navy with no additional assets to the Navy. The result was we freed the Russians up. Now they're spending $720 billion to create 1,600 new airplanes that are going to be pointed at us. When you look at our shift to the Pacific, some of you might have read about that. It's going to be the big new strategic game plan that we have. With these cuts, we won't have the resources to do that. Every day, China's pushing their sovereign demands, and our allies are looking at us and saying, are we going to be there to support them? And all you got to do is turn on the TV, and you see what's happening in the Middle East. We will have fewer ships in our Navy than we've had in 100 years. We will give 150 to 200,000 pink slips to active duty men and women in uniform, and that would be like doing away with the entire Marine Corps. That's wrong. We've got to turn that around. That's a passion that we need to fight common ground to do. And let me close with this before Fred gets me. I've said this almost everywhere I've spoken in the last several months. And hard to say it, I just ask you to forgive me, but it just kind of is the personification, I think, of what we're all doing right now. I gave a speech, a large group of folks several months ago, and at the end they wanted to have questions and answers. The first question that was put to me was from a young couple that was sitting pretty close to where Fred was sitting on the table that was up there. And the man stood up and he said, Congressman, I drove 2 hours to get here tonight because I wanted my son to hear you. And he's getting ready to go to college next year. And I want you to look him in the eye and tell him why he should get involved in civic activity, why he should get involved in government. In this day and age where everything is so polarized, where everything is acrimony, where people are fighting with each other, and there's one attack after the other on somebody. And I asked his son to come up, and he was a big guy. He wasn't heavy, he was big, you know. And I asked him his name, I asked him where he was going to go to college. And then I looked at him and I told him this. I said, look, this is not politically correct, but I'm just at that age where I don't have to be political. and I said, that's kind of a weakness. But I said, let me tell you about a young boy that I know. I said, Cody Childers, from the time he was 11 years old, only had one dream in life. He didn't care about going to college like you did. He didn't want a motorcycle. He didn't want a Jeep. He didn't want all those kinds of things that oftentimes we associate with young kids about 11 years old. The only thing Cody wanted to do was be a United States Marine. That's all he wanted. And he had that dream until he was 18. When he was 18 years old, Cody realized that dream and became a United States Marine. When he was 19 years old, I preached his funeral. And I said, Cody had 2 tattoos on his body. One of them was an American flag, which was literally in red, white, and blue. And the other one was the word family across his chest. And I said, nobody is asking you to pay the price tag that Cody Childers paid for freedom in this country. But I said, let me just tell you this. If you don't have the energy, if you don't have the courage, if you don't have the guts to go out there and work in this country because you're afraid somebody's going to criticize you, because you're afraid somebody is going to attack you, because you're afraid that it's too much effort to stand in line and get somebody to do something. I said, or because somebody's not going to walk up here and put their arms around you and sing Kumbaya. I said, then quite honestly, son, I don't think you deserve the freedom that Cody Childers died to give you. And I think that's where we are in the country today. Whatever we believe, however we are, we need to, one, be fighting to find that common ground to move America forward. We need, two, to start thinking, putting analysis on the table. instead of just our opinions. But then the final thing, we need to have the energy to stand up and start making sure that we're going to do what generations of Americans have done before us, and that is pass the torch of freedom on to our children and our grandchildren. Thank you all for letting me be with you here.